Hey everybody, welcome back to Big Hair Gaming. We're here with another video covering our favorite game, Last War. And today we have a manifestation of Ask and You Shall Receive. So, a little bit earlier in this game series, I did a video covering how to build your skills, mainly focused on the tank team, what to prioritize, who to focus first, what skills get invested in first, and kind of how much wiggle room you have between how far apart in level they should be, that kind of stuff. And in that video, I asked if people would be interested in having another video focused on air heroes and missile heroes. And the answer was a resounding yes. So this is that. So in this video, I'm going to cover all the UR heroes, and I'll also cover the SSR heroes as well. I'm going to do the SSR heroes because there are folks who are out there who are free to play or a low spender, and maybe you don't have the full set of all 5 UR air heroes, and you're kind of looking to invest in someone who you think is a good fit, just to kind of take up that 5th spot to give you the full squad buff. And if you're not familiar with the full squad buff, like we talked about earlier in the series, when we go over troop types and so forth, I'll throw a link to that down in the description. For having all 5 heroes of the same type, you're going to get a 20% increase to your HP, attack, and defense for all heroes in that squad. So if you have 4 UR heroes, the reason to throw in an SSR might be to just get that buff. There's also some heroes who get a buff or increased damage or capabilities based on the number of other air heroes that are in that squad. So that's another reason to do that. But let's jump on in and we'll get started. We'll jump onto the heroes. We're going to sort by air, and we're going to start off with the queen of the air team herself, Diva. So, Diva is one of the air heroes that you get pretty early on in the gameplay of a war zone. So I think like way back before season 1 even begins, Diva becomes available. And if you're looking to build your air team, maybe you're doing it a little bit later, you were focusing on tanks or whatever, and you didn't pick her up way early on, then like she's definitely the center point of your air team. In the same way that we talk about Kim and how crucial she is to the tank team, the same is true for Diva for the air team. So what does that mean? That means like when you're buying gear or when you're upgrading gear, who gets the first piece of legendary gear? That should be the gun. Diva does. And it's like when you're doing the exclusive weapons, like if you don't have Diva's exclusive weapon right when it comes out and you do it later, maybe you're like me and you wait until season 2 to really start investing in your air team. Like you might be getting Diva's weapon around the same time that Carly's does, and if you're doing that, who gets investment first? Diva does. Like she is like the mitochondria, she is the powerhouse of the air team. So like treat her as such. Like she is the queen of the air team. So keep that in mind. So that said, let's dig into her skills. So Diva is a energy damage hero. So she's primarily throwing out energy damage, not terribly dissimilar from Kim, who does the same thing. For her auto attack, she's going to attack one enemy unit, dealing energy damage. But as a special ability, if you have her exclusive weapon, her base attack is going to get upgraded, and I'll talk about both of these as they pertain. So if you have that at stage 1, then she gains the ability that at the beginning of the battle, for each aircraft hero on your side, Diva is going to gain 2 stacks of Vortex Overload. And what that does is it's going to add an extra 3% energy damage, and the effect can stack up to 30%, with each auto attack reducing the attack by 1, by 1 stack of Vortex Overload. So, pretty nice. Let's move on to my favorite ability, the special skill, or I call it a special skill, but in-game it's called the Tactics. I call it like an ultimate or your special, but whatever. It's that little thing that fires off whenever the little pinwheel down at the bottom reaches full, and they do their cool little special move. So for hers, she's going to attack all enemy units, which is dissimilar from Kim, who like shoots off a bunch of missiles randomly at different opponents. Diva attacks everybody, and she's going to deal a bunch of energy damage to them. And then if you have her weapon to stage 2, then you'll get this extra bonus as well. And what that does is, upon hitting enemies, for each aircraft hero on your side, again, we get that special thing that comes in. That's the reason why you might want to throw an SSR hero on. Diva is going to gain a stack of Storm Surge. And what that basically does is that for 4 seconds after that, she's going to get an attack speed increase of up to 100%. So that's pretty solid there. This is my favorite move. And then lastly, we have her passive, which, very simple for strikers, is she just does more damage. Her crit rate is going to increase by an amount. For me, I have it up to 29%. I'm assuming that once I get it to 30, that's going to go up to 30%, which is very nice. But yeah, those are her breakdowns of skills. The last one is always the same, which is once you get to 4 stars, you just get more HP, attack, and defense, and your skills cool down a little bit faster. So what's our focus? The focus of our breakdown. So for me, I always like to focus on the tactics skill first. This is the skill that is going to change the tide of battle. Generally, like when everybody's ultimate goes off is usually when you start to see things sway one side or the other. So as a striker, that's Diva's job, is to do big damage when that timer goes down. So for me, I'm thinking like this is the first thing on Diva that I'm going to blast up. And you can see that like her current skill breakdown, it kind of reflects that. So this is the first thing you want to boost up. I try to like blast it up to the maximum of whatever bucket that I'm in right now, because Diva is in like the super upgrade zone where like I can push up to the level 34. The cost of the upgrades goes up super high, so I'm doing a little bit cost benefit analysis of like, okay, I'll probably bring everything up to level 30 before I start pushing us to above that, just because the damage increase is like not tremendously different but still helpful. But that's what I'm thinking, so I'll probably bring these up just because they're a little bit cheaper. But second is the passive, for sure. The reason for that is that her passive just makes her deal crits more. It's not more crit damage, but it's a greater crit rate, which is really nice. And that means it's going to affect her auto attack as well as her tactics. So if either of these are critting more frequently, then that just means more damage overall. Lastly is her auto attack, where I try to keep like her auto attack and her passive like kind of close by. Like I'll say probably within like 5 levels. Usually I'll probably prioritize the passive over the auto attack, but like I definitely don't want the auto attack trailing behind too far. So like going up from like 10 to 20, like definitely I want this to be at least 5 levels behind the passive. But whereas the ultimate, like I want to push that up to whatever my upper barrier is as frequently as possible, at least up until I get to level 30. But yeah, that's our breakdown for Diva. Hey Commanders, just want to take a quick moment to say that if you're enjoying the video, if it's helping you out, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, as all that sorts of stuff does help out the channel. Let's get back to it. So let's move along. We're going to jump into the second hero who gains her exclusive weapon, and we're going to talk about Carly next. So first, starting off, what is Carly's type? She is a defender hero, or as I like to call them, tanks, but just to make it not confusing with actual tanks, I'll just call them defenders. But she's a defender hero, which means that her job is to soak up damage. So as we start to look at this, like right away, like what's my investment in Carly's auto attack? Not that high. Why? Because like I said, her job is not to deal big numbers of damage. So I'm not relying on Carly's auto attack to be the prime differentiator in me winning or losing a combat. I'm thinking about, what are her other skills and how is she keeping damage off of Diva, Morrison, and Schuyler, who are the other 3 rear line heroes. So with that, let's move along. We have her tactics, and this is where things get interesting. So for her tactics, she's going to attack all enemies dealing physical damage. That's another thing I wanted to mention, as she's a physical damage hero, so just take note of that. She's going to deal physical damage equal to some amount, and she's going to attack reducing the energy damage output of her opponents for 5 seconds. Like the upgrades here increase the amount of energy damage reduction that is done to the opponents, but basically she is just taking energy damage and slapping it down to the ground. She's a very anti-energy damage hero. So Passive, we get to the last one. During battle, she's going to reduce energy damage taken by this hero, that's just her, by some amount. For me, that's almost 40%. And she's going to reduce all enemy auto attack damage by some amount, which does go away once she dies. So for me, very, very, very good skill. Like I said, Carly is basically an anti-energy damage frontline hero. So she's just there to soak up tons of energy damage. And what does the tank team primarily do? When we're looking at their damage output, it's largely coming from Kim and Stepman, who are really big energy damage dealing heroes. So Carly is a great resource to basically take energy damage and slap it down to the ground and basically say no. Now, part of this ability does get upgraded by having the first level of her special exclusive weapon. So what that does is adding that stipulation of when she's present, she just reduces all enemy auto attack damage. So if you don't have the exclusive weapon, what you can look forward to is just that she's just reducing the amount of energy damage taken by her. And once you get that weapon, then it'll do the auto attack thing as well. But still, very, very good. As we go through here, so what are our investment priorities? So as you can see, the kind of breakdown that I have is that I'm really focusing on bringing up her passive ability. The reason being is this is going to help her deal with air teams better. It'll also help her deal with tank teams better, because the air team has, I believe it's Schuyler and Diva, who are both energy damage heroes. And being that Diva is probably the biggest damage dealer on an air team, then having somebody who is very, very good at just sucking up energy damage is going to be really nice. Same goes for the tank team. So that means I'm going to focus getting this passive up. Then, same as before, like I really like tactics, dealing some physical damage and reducing the amount of energy damage that folks can do. Very important. Followed by the auto attack. I'm not really concerned about where this is, and I might leave it at 15 for quite a while in favor of boosting up the passive and the tactics, just because these two are way more critical to Carly's job, and I'm not really concerned about what her auto attack is, because it's not important. All right, so moving on. So rather than go across the line, we're actually going to jump down to Lucius, who is the other defender for the air team. Again, a defender means we're probably not going to prioritize his auto attack. So mine is a little bit trailing behind in terms of investment. During season 1, I wasn't sure whether or not we would get access to specific Lucius shards that you'd be able to get from boxes or otherwise. And the answer is you just don't get like Lucius specific shards. At least I haven't gotten any. Or if I have, I've gotten very few. So that means like if you want to upgrade Lucius, like you just have to bite the bullet and just use your generic shards. So that's just the way it is. So for that reason, like that's part of the reason that I waited to invest in my air team so long, just because I was waiting for some special shards for him to pop up, and they just really didn't materialize. So with that, my current investment of his skills is not reflective of like where I think that they should be, so I'm going to talk about that as we get into it. So we have the auto attack. We already know from talking about Carly, auto attack for defending heroes is not that important. So let's jump ahead. We'll talk about his tactics. What does he do? He's basically another sponge for energy damage. So his tactics is going to be an energy protection ability, and he's going to boost all allies' energy damage reduction by some amount for a length of time. So as he starts to get upgraded, that duration does increase up to 8 seconds at level 5. And the percentage that he reduces the energy damage does also increase as he goes up the upgrade stack. Now I'll save that for later. I'll go right after, and we'll say that. Now getting into his passive. His passive is he's going to boost damage reduction for the first row heroes by some amount, and he's going to reduce energy damage that they take by some amount. And that's just going to go up nice and simple as he starts to get upgraded. And of course, as you invest more points into that, that's also going to go up. So basically between Lucius and Carly, we have two really good energy damage sponges. So part of the reason that they work so well against the tank team is one, just because of the type mismatch of just air team is just strong against tank team in just the rock paper scissors mashup. But as far as like skills, basically you just have two defenders who just soak up energy damage really, really well. As one aside, I'll mention that an alternate team construct that I have seen a lot of is people will swap out swap out Murphy for Lucius on a tank team. The reason being is because he soaks up energy damage so well that you can swap him out for Murphy, who does not soak up energy damage very well. He's primarily a physical damage reductionist. So by swapping him out, then you have two people on your front line, Williams and Lucius, who can both absorb energy damage really well, which means that against other tanks, like, you're doing pretty good. That does, however, mean that like you lose out on that full tank squad buff. So instead of getting a 20% boost to HP, attack, and defense, you then instead get 15%. So that's just something to know. So little aside there about Lucius and kind of like other configurations and how he's useful, but that's my breakdown. As far as skills, what do I think you should invest in? For me, I'm thinking his tactic skill is going to come first, so I'll probably boost this up as high as it'll go, and then have the passive and not a passive trail behind, and then like not really care about his auto attack. I might boost his auto attack up to 15, like I did for Carly, and then just mostly blast this up, and then blast the passive up, and I'll probably keep it maybe 5 or 10 levels behind, just to kind of keep it close by, because this is also reduction, but it applies all the time. But it applies for the front row, whereas this applies for everything. And when you're fighting up against Kim, who will fire her ultimate randomly at any given enemy, as well as Diva, whose ultimate hits everybody, having this extra energy damage reduction that pops off right when that happens will be very helpful. Very, very helpful. Alrighty, so that's our Lucius. And let's move on to our last two heroes, who are two other strikers that we have for the air team, which kind of mixes it up really nicely. Where rather with the tank team, you have 5 heroes, when one of them is support. For air, it's just all damage all the time. So let's get into it. So next up, we have Schuyler, whose name I misspell probably 7 times in a row every time I need to write it down. But let's get into her skills. So we have her auto attack, we have the tactics, and we have the passive. Auto attack is just going to do energy damage. She is yet another energy damage hero, like I mentioned a little bit earlier. She's just going to do an amount of damage that goes up as you invest in her. Now, once we get to her tactics, she's going to prioritize attacking one back row unit, dealing amount of damage that's specified here, with, this is the nice part, a 20% chance to stun the target for 2 seconds. Now, that's going to go up, and she starts to attack an additional target at 2 stars, and then a final target at 4 stars, meaning that she'll attack the entire back row, deal an amount of damage to them, but each of those attacks has a 20% chance to stun. So basically you have like a not super high, but still present amount of time to stun different folks on the back line, which is like not tremendous. It is a big dice roll that like probably won't land all the time. Well, by merit of it not being 100%, not going to land all the time, but it is still pretty solid. And then last one, we love it. Nice and simple for striker heroes. Do more damage. Very plain and simple. So for me, what's the breakdown? Kind of demonstrated by the breakdown that I have here. You can see I was in the middle of upgrading her, and I probably just ran out of medals. But boosting up the tactics, because I wanted this skill that at 4 stars now hits everybody in the back line and has a chance to stun. I just want that to be able to do as much damage as it can. So I'm boosting this up, then dealing just do more damage, which is also very nice. I'm going to be boosting that up, and then I'm going to try to keep that probably within 5 levels of the passive. So pull up the tactics as much as you can, pull up the passive, and then keep that kind of in lockstep with the auto attack. Alrighty, and then our last one, Morrison, who is actually going to be our other physical damage hero on our air team. You can see I recently got him to 4 stars, so I ran out of points, so I couldn't bring him back up. But he is spoken as one of the other really big damage dealers on the air team. So if I were to go back and like take the skill points that I used on Schuyler, I'd probably take those and have put them in the Morrison, but I think I was just absent-minded and I was really excited because it was Hero Day and I'm just pushing buttons. So a little bit of a misplay there, but that's okay. But let's get into his skills. All right, his auto attack, it's an auto attack. It does more damage as you invest in it. Let's go on. The tactics is where stuff gets very interesting, so pay attention. So when he attacks, he uses a minigun to strike random enemy units 10 times. So he gets 10 shots, dealing some amount of damage, and each attack is going to reduce the defense of that enemy unit by 5%, up to a maximum of 25% for the same target that lasts for 9 seconds. But the cool part is once you start upgrading him and you get him up to 4 stars, instead of only attacking 10 times, he attacks 20 times. And each hit reduces their defense by 5%. So basically what Morrison's ability does is that he's helping everybody else on his team do more damage because he's dropping the defense of everybody else on the opponent's team as your main people, like mostly your diva are dealing big damage to the rest of the team, and that lasts for 9 seconds. And this ability's cooldown is 10 seconds. So there's basically just like a 1 second period where their defense goes back to normal, and then he does it again. So for me, this is an absolutely tremendous like team cohesion skill that just makes everybody do what they do better. So like he's so good. So if you're like a free to play or I'll say a low spender, because if you're free to play you're not gonna buy it. But if you're a low spender and you're like, I'm building an air team, but I don't want to buy all 5 UR heroes, like who should I get? Diva, Morrison, probably Carly. Those are my 3 picks. Like Morrison's tactic is so good, like you gotta have it. Then his passive, like we like for striker heroes, nice and simple, do more damage. Plain, like easy to understand. So for me, would you believe after my raving that I'm going to focus on the tactic skill? Super good. I'm going to blast this up on Hero Day to get this up as high as it can. Then I'm going to bring up the passive. I'll probably do this by 5, do this by 5, and then like provided this isn't maxed yet, then I'll bring this up by another 5 and bring this up by another 5. But I'm thinking of like, keep these like somewhat together, but like blast that tactics up as high as you can, like whenever you have the ability to do so. It's super duper good, and like you'll definitely see when those ultimates all go off, like you'll see the work that Morrison is putting in. All right, so we've gone over all 5 UR heroes. Now, what order do I recommend that you start to invest in each of these heroes? Now, one caveat I want to say is that this does not mean do not invest in any other hero until these people are fully maxed or whatever. But if you invite everybody to dinner, everybody needs to get fed, but you're feeding everyone at different times and at different amounts. So keep that in mind. Use that little metaphor as kind of a guide. So who gets fed first? Absolutely Diva, number 1. Even before I was seriously building my air team, I was putting some amount of resources into Diva to kind of boost her up. Especially early on, before my tank team was fully fledged, Diva had a spot on my team in the rear back line just to do some extra damage before I had everybody fully invested up to 5 stars and all that sorts of stuff. So you'll probably be invested in Diva sometime in the early game anyway, but like she's the queen of the team. She's called Diva for a reason, so respect that. Now, if you are coming up on season 2, and you're like either in the celebration range between seasons 1 and 2, or you're at the end of season 1 and you want to start investing in your air team, like when you get to season 2, Carly does get her exclusive weapon. So if you're on the way to that, I'm going to say Carly should be your second choice. If you are going into season 1 or you're midway through season 1, I'm going to say Morrison. And the reason for that is that Morrison's ultimate skill is so helpful to the rest of the team as a whole, especially for Diva. It's just going to help everybody do what they do better. So I'm going to say Morrison if you have the time. But if you're coming up on season 2 and you want to be able to hit the ground running when Carly's exclusive weapon comes out, then I'll say make Carly your second point of investment. After that, fourth, I'm going to say is Schuyler. The reason being is just that she's your last striker, and like this team is basically big damage strike team. So like getting her investment up and making sure that she can do what she's supposed to do is just going to help you do more damage overall, and you get a little bit of that stun time in there too. And then lastly, I'm going to say Lucius, simply because like he's the other defender, and in my own experience, my air team has been doing pretty well and putting in some good work, even though my Lucius isn't heavily invested in. He's only at 3 stars. I only have all of his skills at level 10. And the gear that I have on him isn't crazy good, but it's like okay. So because of that, like Lucius just isn't like a super super duper important piece of the puzzle for me. He's valuable, absolutely, but in comparison to everybody else, I think everybody else should eat a little bit more and eat first, by comparison. So that's my little breakdown. I think the food metaphor kind of helps, but make sure everybody has to eat. Like, sprinkle the skill medals across everybody. But that's your priority breakdown as far as who, and then the rest of it all gives you the what. Cool. So that's my breakdown for all 5 of the UR heroes. Like, I think this is probably like the meat and potatoes of the video. But if you're a free-to-play person or you're a low spender, then the next little bit is all for you. So I'm going to talk about these SSR heroes and kind of go through them. What I'm going to say from the very beginning, SSR heroes are bad. Like, full stop, it's just true. SSR heroes are bad. A lot of their abilities pertain specifically to situations where they're fighting monsters, which just does not help you in a PvP context. Like the only benefit, I won't say only. There's a little caveat there, but the major benefit that you get is just having them on your team is to fill space because you don't have one of these UR heroes, and you just want to make sure that you're getting that full 20% buff. So with that, let's jump in. So we've got, what's his name? Cage. Let's look at his abilities. Let's go back real quick. He is a defender hero, so we already know auto attack, not that important. Let's look at his his tactics. Tactics, he's going to boost the front row defense by a certain amount for a length of time. It doesn't stack, but that length of time increases as he gets boosted, as well as the effect of it also gets boosted as he increases. And then last one, for his passive, it reduces the amount of damage he takes from monsters in battle. So monsters in battle, who cares? Let's keep moving. Next, we have Sarah, who is actually the only support hero of the air team. Like, there's no, like I mentioned before, there's no UR support hero. So she's the only one. Is she worth using on your team as a support? Because you have a support in your tank team. Why not one on your air team? Let's find out. So, support character, auto attack, kind of like the defenders. Like, what's her job? It's not to deal a whole bunch of damage. So skip that. All right, let's go to tactics. Now, what she's going to do is she's going to boost damage against monsters for the 3 back row units by a certain amount for a length of time. The amount goes up as well as the time does as you level her up. Her last one is going to be reduce damage taken from monsters in battle. Not that good, not that great. The case that I could see for Sarah being used is similar to Mason's, where like Mason clearly has like, unless you're missing a UR hero, Mason has like no business being on your team for anything other than fighting like the giant monsters. So when you're fighting like the code whatever monsters and you're trying to maximize your damage, we did a video on that. If you want to check it out, I'll put a little card up on the screen. But if you want to learn about that, like, he's great at doing that and like making you get the best bang for your buck. Is she super good at doing that? I would wager that like the answer is like maybe yes. I'll look into it. I'll try it for myself. My intuition says like maybe you'll get some extra damage. If you swap out like Lucius on your team for Sarah, maybe if you just boost this up as high as you can. She does use purple shards. Like I've got a bunch of her shards that I can just throw in for extra points on Hero Day, which I'll probably do. But I'll come back to that and I'll let you know if my air team damage goes up with Sarah on the team or not, and maybe if she's a good investment for that. I'll do a follow up. But lastly, we have Maxwell, who is going to be the SSR striker hero. So what does he got going on? He's got his auto attack. Auto attack's important for strikers. We know that. Then he has his tactics. He's going to prioritize attacking a front row unit, dealing an explosive damage. But he has a pretty decent chance to stun. for 1 second, which is not terribly dissimilar from what was it, Shulker? But um, that goes up to 100% chance for 1 second when he pops this off. So that's not bad. And then lastly, we have his passive, which is just more damage, but unfortunately, it's to monsters in battle. So that's a shame. So of the three of these folks, who do I recommend like actually having on your team as a supplement? Um, I would say like if you're missing somebody on your team, you probably want to go with Cage. And my reason for that is because he has the only tactics ability that doesn't have anything to do with monsters, and it just boosts the defense of the front row. So like maybe if you're a low spender, free to play, whatever, and you don't have all 5 air heroes, what's the team configuration that I'm going to recommend? I'm going to say if you can get a couple, you got to grab Diva, you got to grab Morrison, you got to grab Carly, because Diva and Carly both have exclusive weapons that are worth grabbing, even if you're a low spender. I'm just throwing it out there. That are worth grabbing. You'll have Carly on your front line. You can put Cage in there to throw him in. And if you just want the utility of being able to deal with monsters and not having to mess around with your team comp, then I guess you could throw in Sarah as well as your other SSR hero. But like if you really want to build your air team, like make sure you do throw in, try to grab all 5 of the UR heroes, because they do pop off really hard, and like the difference in power between a full UR team and one that has some SSR in it is like night and day. It's a huge difference. Huge difference. So yeah, that'll bring this video to an end. That's all the coverage for the UR and SSR heroes, as well as some tips on like what to prioritize, who to focus on, and like giving you some other ideas for team comps and how you can build around that, even if you don't have all the UR heroes. But yeah, if this video helped you out, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, all that sorts of stuff. Share it with your Alliance mates, because all that sorts of stuff really does help the channel. Toss it in your Alliance Discord. Help me out a whole bunch. And if you want to, we do have channel memberships. If you want to be a member and you want to support the channel, you like the stuff that I'm doing, feel free to hit that button down below. It'll give you a bunch of details. We have some special members-only videos. I'm also going to be polling those folks first for my feedback series that I'm going to do. So we'll do some focused feedback on that. Lastly, I want to give a shout out to our channel members. We have our first channel member, Tony Expert. Thanks so much for supporting the channel here. Your contributions will help me continue to do these long form videos and do these cool deep dives. But thanks so much for being here. And with that, I want to thank everybody. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I'll catch you in the next one.